In my mind and in my car. We can't rewind. We've gone too far. Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. It was a massive week. Apple announced an experience coming March 4th. We're going to pontificate what that means. Plus, the first beta of iOS 26.4 came out with a ton of new features. Plus, video is kind of coming to Apple Podcast again in a different way. Google announced I/O. The Pixel 10a is out there. RAM is becoming a serious problem, even for Apple. A bunch of AI news and a ton more. This episode is brought to you by Transistor, Framer, and 1Password, and of course, all of you, the members who support us directly. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles, back on my original mic. And also, my friend Jason Aten with a different camera view. How's it going, Jason?
I mean, I just put the same camera in a different place, and I look really large. It's fine. Everything's fine.
If you watch on YouTube, Jason's going to be larger than life, literally, because I'm going to zoom in to crop his head.
I appreciate
just to fill
that.
the entire frame.
I hope you don't.
I tricked you today. Not really tricked, because I gave you a heads up. I didn't do a movie quote today. I did a song lyric.
Well, and you didn't trick me because you told me in advance you were going to do a song lyric,
that's
so
right.
That's helpful.
That's right.
However,
yes,
it is a song that is, I mean, the movie quote would be The Wedding Singer.
Sure.
Because the song is in The Wedding Singer.
Okay, but I was trying to go to the original source.
I'm just saying. So it's the one about the radio got killed by the video. Video killed the radio star.
I was really the way you were butchering that. I was really afraid what was happening. Yes, video killed the radio star is the name of the song. So it's going to be apropos because I'm not going to have as massive a crash out as I did about chapters in Apple Podcasts. But Apple announced video podcasts are coming in iOS 26.4. I was super excited. I literally posted on all the social medias, this is what I've been asking for. And then I did a deeper dive.
What you've been asking for.
And it's not what I've been asking for. So we're going to get to that. A couple 5-star review shout-outs, though. Puko from Australia says they love the banter, love the takes, love the chemistry. Feels like a nice chat with friends. We actually are friends, Jason.
That's
in
true.
Case
the way you just said that was like, in case I didn't know, we are actually
right.
friends. Thank
Jason,
you, Stephen.
I'm informing you today. We are
Appreciate
actually
that.
friends. Yeah. And Shahab from Canada has a Vision Pro M2, battery percentage on, point to you, front non-dominant pocket. I think that's also point to you.
I think you're right.
But dots on. So I got that point for the Mac. And we do have a number of Vision Pro users who listen and watch the show because we asked last week. That's what our 5-star rating and review question was for last week. Who has a Vision Pro out there? So Shahab does. Several others reached out. And Paul Myers in our community, which is social.primarytech.fm, he says, I love my Vision Pro. Has been an active user since launch day. Most days he uses it for some video, gaming, some productivity, and also has the productivity apps like Slack, Discord, Microsoft Teams on it.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know Microsoft Teams was on there. And he was even commenting using the Circle app on Apple Vision Pro, which I didn't even know you could download the Circle app there, which is our community. So there you go. Vision Pro users, they're out there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I still have my M5 Vision Pro review unit, and now I'm in this place where anytime in the event I do want to use the Vision Pro, I don't want to use my old one because it's so slow.
Yeah.
And now I don't know what I'm going to do because I was planning on just setting this M5 back immediately. And and let me update. By the way, I eventually did get a developer strap because I ordered a second one. UPS failed me horribly. They never delivered it, ever. And so I ordered a second one, and Apple sent it via FedEx, and it actually came. So kudos to FedEx. Here's the developer strap if you're not familiar. You're watching on YouTube.
Wait, that's technically a developer dongle.
It is a dongle. They call it the strap because you actually have to replace the entire strap.
Okay.
Like this whole thing comes off, and then this little dongle is sticking out. And you get a USB-C port right here. And so I was doing some playing around and testing, and I posted about it. But you can use an HDMI capture dongle in this dongle and have dongles all the way down, and then get your like Nintendo Switch or video game system in the Vision Pro using the PlayStation Portal app. In case anybody cares. Does not pass in audio and is somehow still a little laggy, even though it's literally a direct cable from the video output. So anyway, I just want to mention that as a brief follow-up. If you're trying to get an HDMI source into Vision Pro, an NDI box, which I did a whole video about, is actually still the best way because it passes audio. And it's not very laggy. So anyway, I don't know. That's for the 5 Vision Pro owners. If there's more than 5, leave us a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts and let us know. And also, this is one other follow-up. This is from Norbert via email. He was getting some directions in Apple Maps and actually found that it was telling him charging points for electric vehicles on his route. And I don't want to show the map because I don't want to dox him, because it shows like his starting point and end point. But I just tried this on mine, and I don't see it. In his Apple Maps UI here, it actually has his car percentage as like the My Location starting, and then he can choose a vehicle that's like in the now and avoid, which are like options when you get directions, which if you didn't know, you can get directions in Apple Maps, tap where it says now, and then put a future date and time, and it will try to predict the traffic and predict the travel time. But you have the now, there's the avoid tolls or don't avoid tolls, and he has options to choose his electric vehicle in that line. And so I don't believe this was before the 26.4 beta came out, so this would have to have been 26.3 at the latest. But if you're also out there and you have an electric vehicle and you're seeing this charging data and charging stops in Apple Maps, let us know. Reach out. I'm really curious. I don't see this yet, and I don't know if you have to have a car that's somehow connected in a way with like Apple Car Key or something. He has a Toyota connected in Apple Maps. But have you ever seen this when you do it?
Not the part where you can tell it what your current state of charge is and have it calculate battery usage.
I don't know how it's doing that.
I mean, Apple Maps has had like supercharger locations for a long time, so you can include them in your routing. But I don't know what we're looking at. I can't even find where you would tell it.
Yeah, I'm actually I have the 26.4 beta. This is hilarious. Apple Maps, the first time you open it on a new phone, because I have my iPhone Air here, and I've never opened Apple Maps on it, and it's requesting permission for location for Apple Maps.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Which, sure, I appreciate that, but also it's kind of hilarious.
Also, if I didn't want you to know my location, I wouldn't have opened the Maps app.
I know. It's kind of inherent.
The most important function of the Map app is that you know where I am.
But I've never seen, and I even went to the map settings this morning before we recorded to see if there was some kind of like put in your EV information, and I don't see that. So anyway, if anyone else has seen this, shoot us an email, podcast@primarytech.fm. Would love to know. And final follow-up before we get into the Apple experience on March 4th and the 26.4 beta. I went back to my original mic because I have a weird emotional connection to this microphone for some reason. And Jason keeps moving forward towards the camera for some reason. I think
I just had to move.
Well, every time you do, it's very intimidating because it's like looming up. But anyway.
No, it's just, I wanted to remind you that the reason that you switched back is because I pointed out that you might have sounded better. You might not have, but you did not sound $4,000 better or whatever that microphone.
It was a $700 microphone. I still have it. I'm still on the fence. Thank you for all of you who sent in feedback. It was basically a 50-50 split. Some people were like, sounds way better. Half the people were like, liked it before. But I also put that newer mic through a different processing chain. Like I didn't apply a filter that I apply on this mic. So I'm going to edit this mic like I did last week's mic, and we'll see if anybody hears a difference. So anyway, that's it.
Listeners, I promise you I'm never going to switch microphones, ever.
Yeah. Jason uses the SM7B, which is like the industry standard.
And I don't care. People are like, oh, why would you use that microphone? It's the one that everyone uses. I'm like, well, maybe there's a reason everyone uses it. It's just, it works. It's durable. It's reliable.
Yeah. And great. For the amount of times that Jason hits his desk, that's the one microphone that won't like make a sound. It's literally made like this. That's why like all the big podcasters, like who are not trained microphone users and they like grab the mic all the time and move it, they use that mic because you don't hear it.
I think you just called me an amateur, but that's fine.
No, not an amateur. Fine. I'm saying totally you get enthusiastic and you bang the desk, and that's good.
I think the problem with me banging on the desk had nothing to do with the microphone and the fact that when I do, the camera just starts going like this.
The camera's inside the situation, but that's fine. It's fine. All right, Apple announced an experience happening on March 4th. There was much consternation. I called it an event, and then there were a lot of people that were like, it's not an event, it's an experience. And I think it is actually probably more accurate to say an experience. Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, and a lot of other people were like, what's probably going to happen is newsroom PR releases Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday maybe. And then Wednesday, Apple invited a bunch of creators to New York, London, and Shanghai, 3 different locations, for an experience at 9 a.m. Eastern. Does not appear like it's going to be a live video stream. Apple didn't say there's any kind of live video stream, although we're still a couple weeks away. But it might be like some videos they released on their YouTube channel of products they announced. But it seems clear that they are going to release some hardware, either in newsroom, press releases, maybe videos on their YouTube channel. Rumors are possible iPad Air, the 12-inch MacBook powered by an A18 Pro chip is in the rumor mill. Also, new, M5 iMac or things like that. So, new hardware, long shot. Maybe we'll see a HomePod with a screen or other type things. I did not get invited in person, just for the record. So, just throwing that out there. But anyway, what do you think is going to happen? Because you've been to the New York, building, like the Apple, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's a townhouse.
The townhouse.
It's what do I think is going to happen? I do think it's pretty likely that there will be 3 days of announcements.
Right.
I don't have any information. That's just what I think is going to happen. I think they'll announce something by press release on Monday, something by press release on Tuesday, maybe something by press release on Wednesday. Maybe there'll be a video. It's all very confusing. And this would be sort of a merger of two different types of things they've done in the past. So for the M5 iPad event, this has happened multiple times, but in that case, they had two events, essentially one in New York and I think one in London.
Yes.
And they showed a keynote on their website or on YouTube. Maybe they just dropped it on YouTube, and we just watched it while we were there, right? And there were some Apple people there. Like there was a couple of executives in London, one or two people in New York. But the reason you go to something like this is because then afterward you have an opportunity to go to the hands-on section, right? Correct. They have a hands-on, and if you're getting a review unit, they hand you one before you leave, kind of a thing. This was the event I believe I ran down the street so that you and I could record when I went to a WeWork.
That's right.
Yeah, so listeners, if you remember, that was that. They've done this a couple of other times.
The Scary Fast event was kind of like this.
So that was exactly like that, actually. So the difference, though, is that the Scary Fast event, I think I'm allowed to say this. Whatever. I didn't get invited to this one, so I'll say what I want. The Scary Fast event, actually, we had the briefings and the hands-on before the event dropped. If you remember, the event dropped while I was on a plane coming home. I watched the event on my laptop on a flight coming home because the news was embargoed till then, but we had already had the briefing. We'd already had the hands-on. We'd already had briefing, like individual briefings and stuff. So they've done a couple different ways of doing this, and my guess is, and then they've also done it where like 3 days in a row they just drop press releases, no event, no video, nothing. So it seems like they're like, well, that worked well with this, they'll take a little bit of that one, we'll just make something new, and they're just going to smush it all together. So I'm excited. We're going to get new Apple hardware, some kind of hardware. We'll see what it is. If it's a 12-inch MacBook, I don't need one. I'm probably going to get one. If it's a 17E, I'm going to just, who cares?
If it's the 17E iPhone, actually, that video I actually did pretty well because I gave it to my son to review, and then the video was me and him reviewing it. If that 17E doesn't have MagSafe, though, I'm going to flip a table.
You're not going to flip a table. You say that every week, but...
Not as big a table as I'm going to flip about the video podcasting, but a little table.
We'll get to that. There's only so many tables.
Like a card table.
You're just going religious on us here. He's flipping tables. He's going into the temple. He's just... Anyway.
You're going.
Well, no, I just... I hope that it's... There has been so much sort of pent-up energy for an event this spring, and I understand people are like, it's not an event. Whatever. An announcement this spring that I really hope it's just not like a phone that almost no one cares about.
It's got to be more than one thing. There's no way they're having a bunch of people go to London, Shanghai, and New York for just the 17E.
Well, right. There's at least 3 things coming, I would bet.
At least 3 things. So anyway, that's us pontificating. That March 4th, we'll cover it all here, of course, that week on the show. But iOS 26.4, the first beta actually came out with a bunch of new feature drops and huge news for Apple Podcasts, which I'm going to put that at the end. Let me get through all the little changes. Not so much little, but iOS 26.4 Apple Music gets a bunch of new changes. There's a new album view. So if you go to album, like the whole now playing screen or the whole album screen is now kind of like color coded, and it could kind of be this like full screen artwork. Looks really nice. So new album design. There's also Playlists Playground. This does require Apple Intelligence. This is supposedly an AI feature, but you can basically prompt Apple Music to make you a playlist. This is probably, hopefully, to get better playlists like Spotify. You know, everybody says Spotify makes better playlists. Well, here, you can actually prompt it to be whatever you want. It also has like stock prompts. You can just choose and make a playlist. So, new Playlist Playground, kind of like Image Playground, but playlists. There's also an ambient music widget. There's that. You can add songs to multiple playlists at once. But the concert info, I thought this was really cool. If there's an artist currently on tour, like you can look up Aleve, right now, and you could see that they're on tour and they're on their little artist page, and then you can go down and see the tour dates, see where they are, all in Apple Music, and then there's a button to get tickets, which basically goes to Ticketmaster. But you can see that live concert info right there in Apple Music. I was really hoping, because I've been building a shortcut using the Ticketmaster API, I was hoping that Apple was going to add a shortcuts action to pull artist tour information, because Apple Music has a bunch of shortcuts actions, but that has not come out yet in 26.4. Maybe it'll come out in later betas, but yeah, that was Apple Music. Any Apple Music thoughts or anything in there?
No, but I mean, all of this is literally stuff that they have in Spotify, so Apple's like, I guess we should
we should
at least be on par with the other streaming service if we're going to charge the same amount of money.
That. So Apple Music changes. Also, we do get one new shortcuts action. You can set the battery charge limit via a shortcuts action. So you can, if you want to set it to like 80% maximum charge limit, there's now a shortcuts action. There's a toggle for save this till tomorrow. So if you only wanted to do it for one night, you could do that. Then you can set that up in an automation, like run this at 10 p.m. every day or whatever. So that's the one new shortcuts action we have. CarPlay, in the first beta, there's not, like, a lot of these changes aren't in the first beta, but in the code and in the simulator for Xcode, that it was found that CarPlay support is going to be coming for AI voice apps like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. So you'll be able to talk to Gemini or Claude via voice, via CarPlay. It is not like you can map the voice control button on your steering wheel to one of these apps. You will still have to literally open the app on the screen to start the voice conversation, but they will be there. So that's a thing. And it looks like AirPlay video will be coming in 26.4 to AirPlay. There was a video. It's on, they showed it off in the simulator, but basically with 26.4, if you're connected to CarPlay and you start playing a video on your iPhone, there's a little AirPlay symbol that appears, and it shows like send to car kind of thing. And so later betas, hopefully we'll see this actually implemented. And I literally bought a CarPlay screen yesterday to try. This is like a $50 CarPlay.
Why did you buy that? For what?
So I can do a video about the changes in CarPlay once they actually arrive in later betas, and I can have the CarPlay right here.
You don't have a car that has CarPlay?
Jason, you know what car I drive. Does that car have CarPlay?
I mean, it's coming.
Supposedly. But
let me ask you a CarPlay question.
Yeah, please.
This is I apologize. I don't mean to derail us too far.
No, that's fine.
But I've been listening because the news is that Tesla's adding CarPlay. I don't care about like the reasons for that, to be honest with you. Like whatever, they need to get more people to buy cars. Fine.
Yeah.
And it's slightly delayed and it has something to do with, I don't know, mapping, whatever. Like it's fine, all this stuff. But as a Tesla driver,
yes,
I will tell you, I have literally never once thought I wish this had CarPlay. Now, our other car, which is a Hyundai Palisade, I don't know how anything works if I'm not using CarPlay. Like I have no idea how to navigate a single screen in the in-dash whatever system that's in there because it's all garbage, and CarPlay is a million trillion times better. We were in Texas. We'll talk about that maybe in the bonus episode this past weekend. Yes. And the rental car, CarPlay is literally the best thing for renting cars because you don't have to care about this random car that I just picked up.
Right.
How do I work anything? I have never once thought my Tesla needs CarPlay. And it's not that the Tesla software is amazing. Like I'm not arguing that, but I am saying like it would be nice if there were some physical buttons, but it all just works really well. And so I just am curious, like the idea that CarPlay is the solution to all the bad things about car software, I feel like it's put a little too much pressure on CarPlay.
It is, I think, elevating CarPlay to a level that maybe it has not actually achieved.
Yeah, because CarPlay is actually not that great. It is better than everything else that is in a car for the most part, but it is actually not that great. But
I will say, I think about CarPlay at least once every drive for two different reasons. One, I have an old Tesla, and the charging port, it thinks it's always open. It just always says charging port open, even when it's not. And the problem is when it thinks the charging port is open, the screen that's behind the steering wheel, which if you have turn-by-turn directions, shows you the turn-by-turn like path, that doesn't show up because all it shows me is your charging port is open, even though it's not. So The only turn-by-turn map I have is the big map in the middle, and that view is so zoomed out that I've missed turns because I can't tell where it's telling me. And I'll literally have to like reach over, pinch and zoom.
No, just double tap. Just literally double tap,
Sure.
and it will recenter and zoom in, and then double tap again. You can have that at any zoom level you want.
That's great, except when the turn is like now.
Well, no, you do this before you start driving.
But if you zoom in, after a few seconds, it zooms back out.
No. If you double tap, it doesn't. It repositions.
Even on the older ones?
If you pinch to zoom, it will do what you just described. But if you double tap, it'll recenter on your location at a new zoom level.
Okay, I will try that today. I'm driving to my mom's house today. I will try it. But anyway, I would much prefer to have Apple Maps instead of Tesla Maps, and my particular Tesla for that reason. But the second big reason is while the Tesla has Apple Music and Apple Podcasts apps, so you can like connect your Apple ID and you have your whole library, Apple Podcasts syncing playback is still not ideal, and so playing from my phone in the car is not great. But that integration does not bring over your paid podcast feeds. So any podcast that you've supported through Memberful, like if you support Primary Technology at join.primarytech.fm, you cannot play those episodes through the Tesla interface. They just don't show up because it's accessing all the whatever's available in Apple Podcasts basically on the web. And those RSS feeds, even though they sync across your devices, like if you add it on your iPhone, you can play it on your iPad, it doesn't show up in the Tesla. So all the podcasts that I support, like ATP or Connected, like all those shows, like I can't play the member episodes in through the main interface. So I ignore it basically, and I play it from my phone.
Yeah, Bluetooth.
I just play Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Which is a pain in the butt.
No.
When you want to adjust anything or change anything, or if I want to switch episodes. And so I would love to have CarPlay in there so I can just listen to all my episodes like normal. If I have them in a queue, they'll just play like they're supposed to, and I never have to think about it. I can just get in my car, start driving, and it's going to play right. So that's why I'm hopeful for CarPlay in my car specifically.
Yeah, I just think it's a problem that is so easily solved in other ways. And again, I think in almost every car, CarPlay is like the answer. Because the system is so bad, and for all the things you just described. But I have just never once driven my Tesla and thought this would be better if it had CarPlay. Because maybe it's just because I've been driving it long enough that it's secondhand to do all of those things. I have my phone just mounted right there, and if I need to change, also you can use the buttons on the steering wheel to change us.
Do you hear that right now?
Yeah, you're being visited by aliens.
So I think what is happening is I downloaded a menu bar app called Itsy Home, and it allows you to control your smart home from your menu bar, because the next Mac Power Users episode, we talk all about menu bar apps. And I think whenever someone rings our doorbell, it just starts piping the audio through my Mac.
That doesn't seem ideal for someone who records things from their Mac.
And this has happened several times. I was actually recording something yesterday, and it had the video pop up, and I was like, I don't want that. So I turned the video off, but apparently it's still piping the audio through. So anyway, that was someone at my door, which I don't have to get.
That was a guest. There was a guest on our podcast. They don't know they were a guest, but they were a guest. All you have to do to be a guest on this podcast is ring Steven's doorbell.
But don't try to don't do that. Don't try to look up. Listen, don't do that. Anyway, well, we'll see. I got this to test. So I got this to test CarPlay. So I literally don't have to go into a different car to make a video about it. I literally just plug this in, and it's on my desk, and I have my nice camera, and I can show it side by side with like the old version and new version. So anyway, it was like $50. You can get CarPlay for $50 now if you don't mind having another display in your car. So anyway, other changes, because we have to get to the video podcast. Apple TV, there's no more TV shows and movies from the iTunes store. So those like separate apps that still existed on the Apple TV even till today, those are gone. But also 26.4 tvOS adds continuous audio connection, which if you use Sonos with your Apple TV setup and your TV, you know it can be kind of a pain sometimes. Like the sound will sometimes disconnect, or it has to like reconnect after it's been sleeping for a while. Supposedly this continuous audio connection will hopefully keep things like those Sonos sound bars just connected ongoing. And I'll look forward to that. I'll turn this on all my Apple TVs. You ever had that problem? Because you have Sonos.
I don't really feel like I've had this problem, but maybe I just haven't. The only problem I have is that every time I turn on my Apple TV now with the Sonos, it resets the volume to 0. Like there's 0 volume, and you have to turn. It doesn't matter what it was before. You have to turn it back up from 0. And I'm like, that's weird.
It is weird. Maybe this will fix that. Maybe it'll like just say you set the volume and it holds it.
And what's weird is that when you click the remote for the first time, it shows you the little icon on the side, and it's at whatever it was before. And then it's like, oh, nope, just kidding. Nope. We're at 0. Hang on, I didn't do that.
That's what it does to me too. So maybe this will fix it. Also, RCS end-to-end encryption might be coming to RCS. Apple said it's not supposedly in the 26.4, but they're starting to test it. So maybe later this year, we'll see end-to-end RCS encryption.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, RCS has end-to-end encryption. It's just not implemented in messages.
Thank you. And Hotspot will show usage data per device. So if you're hotspotting from your phone to your Mac, you'll be able to see how much data your Mac has used. And then if you start hotspotting your iPad to your phone, it'll show you the data breakdown. So that's cool. Also, more vitals. So blood oxygen will be in the vitals in the Health app. And also, if you track your sleep, there's now a breakdown of your bedtime over the last 2 weeks in Apple Health. Which, do you wear your Apple Watch to sleep? I forget.
I wear a Apple Watch to sleep, yes.
Oh, yeah. You live that dual watch lifestyle.
I do.
That's right. I wear my Apple Watch Ultra 2 to sleep, to track my sleep. I've been getting the sleep score. Do you get your sleep score now? Do you like getting the sleep score?
I get 3 sleep scores, Steven.
Oh, because you wear the Whoop.
I get one from the Whoop, one from Apple Health, and one from Sleep Plus Plus.
Yeah.
They're all wildly different.
Okay.
I only slept once last night, but I have 3 scores, and one of them is like, you just had the best sleep, and the other one is like, are you still alive? And then there's one that's like, how come you didn't go to bed on time? They're totally different.
Really?
Yeah. So I usually just go with whichever one is nicest to me. I'm very transactional in that way.
That's hilarious. So I've been getting my sleep score. I don't know if I like it because I'll wake up and it's like 75. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do about it now? There's nothing I can do about it now.
Yeah, I'm awake.
Like, and then you just want me to feel bad all day? Like,
should I just go back to bed? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
And then and sometimes it seems arbitrary. Like, I don't know. It feels like I sleep similarly every night. I wake up feeling similarly semi-tired every day. And then some days it's like 95, you did great. I'm like, okay, cool. But it's like, I don't know. I feel bad some days because it tells me 75 and I'm like, I don't know if I need to need to feel bad.
This is what mine said this morning. Hang on, it says high sleep score. Once you were asleep, you stayed asleep. What kind of metric is that? And then and that helped you score an 86. I'm like, that's a high sleep score, is an 86. Man, listen, I don't get out of bed for anything less than a 95. Okay,
I'll tell you, I'm looking at my sleep score now. I got 1 point higher. I got an 87 last night. Way to get to bed on time, which I do think. I'm gonna be honest. I laid down last night and then I still scrolled for a couple minutes, so it might think my bedtime is different.
So I think also I lied. I actually get 4 because the Google Health app actually gives me a sleep score too because I have one of these things on this. Anyway. I think it was an episode of Connected where Steven was talking a little bit about sleep tracking because Steven works for whatever
David Smith's company.
His company where they make Sleep Plus Plus. Yeah. And the point was the reason that those scores are so wildly different is that they're all tracking something different. And I think Apple Health's thing is mostly looking at, did you go to bed at roughly the same time? And did you stay asleep all night? That's what and did you get enough sleep? Whereas like Sleep Plus Plus might be looking at like, what was your resting heart rate while you're sleeping? I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just making this up. Yeah. They're looking at slightly different metrics to determine whether or not you got a lot of sleep. Because I think Sleep Plus Plus actually tracks the amount of time you spent in different sleep categories. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why they're very different. But Apple seems to be like, go to bed at the same time and don't get up until morning.
Yeah, don't get up. Even if you wake up, just don't move. Don't move.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, we need to talk about the video podcast change in 26.4 because it's a big deal. But before we do, we have a new sponsor, and it's one of my favorites. It is the company we use to literally host this very podcast, the company I've used for years to host podcasts, which is transistor.fm. Listen, if you listen to this podcast, maybe you're thinking about starting your own. Maybe you're thinking about what is the best podcast host to use? Transistor. The answer is Transistor. Transistor.fm/BeardFM. If you want to go to this page, you can save 20% off your first year. But we've been using Transistor since the beginning. I've hosted all my shows for the last 6 or 7 years on Transistor. This is what it looks like when you do it. Transistor has all the things. If you're looking for a podcast host that has all the features, that makes it easy to start a podcast, they submit it to all the things for you, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It will handle getting your show in all the places. You get a website when you have your podcast on Transistor, beautiful website templates. This is what our website looks like. And I love listen, I've tried every podcast host. I love the way episode pages look in Transistor because you can play the audio. The show notes are themed super nicely. They have the listen everywhere button so you can connect everything, but they even embed the video, which we're going to talk about video podcasting in a second. They embed the video. We have our YouTube video here. You can do links to like your support and membership. I really love the people page where you can add all the people who have been guests plus your hosts, and you can have them listed here, and someone could click and see the episodes. We actually have a guest episode coming next week, just a little teaser, and so we'll be adding someone to the people page. But I absolutely, as a podcast and RSS nerd, I absolutely love Transistor. Plus, it gives you all the features, like if you had to add prefix to your RSS feed, all of that. And HLS video streaming, Transistor has actually been supporting that for a long time, and I know that they're working with Apple to support this new video podcasting method in 26.4. And so if you are ever considering a podcast host, you want to move your show to the best podcast host out there, Transistor is the way to go. Transistor.fm/BeardFM. That link is in the show notes. Justin, who is the co-founder and runs Transistor, is a personal friend of mine, and I've met him at so many podcast conferences. He's awesome. Their support team is awesome. I cannot say enough good things about Transistor. So go try Transistor. Link is in the show notes. And thanks to Transistor for sponsoring this episode. And speaking of podcasts, this was the biggest news.
The biggest news of all time.
The biggest news of all time in 26.4. Apple dropped this press release, and it was that Apple introduces a new video podcast experience on Apple Podcasts. I did a whole video on this. I won't go super in-depth. Just to get ahead of all the comments, yes, Apple Podcasts, the app, has supported video podcasts for years. The way they supported it was you had to have a separate RSS feed just for the video, and it stunk because people had to have two different shows listed in Apple Podcasts to offer video and audio. This new method will be HLS video streaming, which is better than the RSS video because HLS can adapt quality depending on internet connection. It is better at streaming. It breaks down a video file into like 10-second chunks, so it's a better technology for video streaming. Apple actually invented HLS like the standard. It is what lots of video platforms on the internet use, like YouTube. So this is the better standard for video podcasts. Now, I have hoped for and wanted Apple to give creators better tools for video podcasting. And in my mind, I was hoping they were going to do it like Spotify. Spotify, right now, we upload our video to Spotify, and I don't have to do anything different to my podcast host. I literally log into creators.spotify.com. I can claim my show via the RSS feed and the email that's there. And after our episode hits the RSS feed in Spotify, I literally upload my video directly to Spotify, and then they handle the rest. I can add a custom thumbnail. I can even add a video clip, and Spotify does it all. I was really hoping that Apple was just going to rip that method and let me upload a video to Podcast Connect, which is the back end of Apple Podcasts, and then just let people choose to watch the video or watch the audio. They've not really done it that way. What they have done is only work. They don't want the video files, first of all. So you can't upload video files directly to Apple Podcasts. Instead, they are working with specific podcast hosting providers, which is going to come into play in a moment. And creators basically have to upload their video version to these specific podcast hosts, and then those specific hosts will deliver the video to Apple Podcasts via HLS, and then you could have a video in Apple Podcasts. Now, in my video, I showed there's a few shows that have this right now. There is the Kiki Palmer show, there's the Zane Lowe interview show, and you can watch those if you download the beta 1, which don't do it right now, but if you download beta 1 of 26.4, you can watch it in Apple Podcasts right now. And basically, when a podcast supports video, there's a little video symbol both on the episode and on the show. You'll also see it in the now playing screen. And you can turn video on and off, switch between them. And that's it. If you want to turn off the video, you can. If you want to watch the video, you can watch it in landscape and go from there. Now, that's all cool. Fine. there's some bugginess, like the video podcasts don't have chapters. So all the auto-generated chapters that Apple was doing since like 26.3, whatever, the chapters aren't there. The transcript is there, but it doesn't follow along like it does in the audio versions. So like if you open the transcript for this show while you're listening and you don't pay for the member version, it will follow along as we talk. And so it literally moves along. When you watch a video version, right now the transcript is not following along in 26.4. That might be a beta thing. It might be changing, but it doesn't follow along. And the chapters appear in the transcript. Like you actually see the chapter headings in the transcript, but you can't tap to jump to that point, and the chapters don't show up in like the up next little queue area. So that's that. But one of the things about how Spotify does video podcasts is if a podcast host or creator like us, if we upload a video to Spotify and you watch the video, but you want to switch to audio, it does not fall back to the MP3 file in our RSS feed. It will actually just play the video file's audio and just not have the video on.
Yeah, it's like if you're using the YouTube app and you swipe up and you go back to like it just keeps playing the audio from it even though you can't see the video anymore.
Correct. Now, I literally asked Apple this question, and it's going to be the same behavior in Apple Podcasts. Namely, that when if you as a creator choose to add video to your podcast, the podcast host is going to deliver the episode via HLS video and audio, and the MP3 file that you might have attached via RSS is basically going to be ignored unless someone has a device that's not updated to iOS 26.4. So if you have 26.3 or earlier, they'll still get the old MP3 file that you include. Or if someone's on a device that does not support HLS. So like in a Tesla, in the Apple Podcast app, it's likely not going to support the HLS video at launch. So then the MP3 file will be delivered to them. So that's a little confusing, but it creates a big question for creators like us. Because I edit the MP3 file for this podcast differently than I edit the video. I add custom chapter artwork in the MP3 to every episode and set chapter markers differently than in the video. I also edit the audio slightly differently because I want the audio to be just a little high, a little elevated versus the video, because I can do that easily in the audio only version as opposed to like how I edit this in Riverside. So it's a question now to a creator. If you want to support video in Apple Podcasts, one, you have to be on a host that supports it, which we'll get to in a second and why that's a big deal. But two, are you okay with your video's audio being the only audio most people hear? And you would basically be giving up the chapter artwork and being able to edit that MP3 file differently than the video. And like I mentioned in my YouTube video about this, if you look at our episodes on the Primary Tech YouTube channel, last week's episode was like an hour, 7 minutes, and 43 seconds. And if you listen in the audio version, it's like an hour, 7 minutes, and 20-something seconds. There's like a 20 to 30-second difference. It might be because I added a musical stinger, because I edited it differently. And so that would not match up. And Apple wants it to be a seamless experience. So if you're watching a podcast in the Apple Podcast app, you tap hide video and the audio doesn't change. Like you continue hearing the conversation uninterrupted. So obviously the video and audio has to be exactly the same length, edited exactly the same way. So we have a decision to make once this arrives. Do we support video in Apple Podcasts and give up some of the MP3 RSS features that we have been doing for years, or ignore it, don't offer this as a feature, and just point people to YouTube if they want to watch the show? And for me, this is really tough because every time Apple Podcasts has launched a new feature, I've jumped on it immediately. The moment they offered paid subscriptions in Apple Podcast at Apple Insider, I adopted it day one. When Apple started adopting the transcript feature, I had that on day one. Auto-generated chapters, no problem. This now is a bigger question. And I don't know, before I get to the podcast host part of this, Jason, do you have any feelings about it?
Well, they're not quite as strong as Steven's.
Sure.
But I think I mean this when I say, in a lot of ways, Apple is essentially saying podcasting is dead. Because podcasting has changed from what it, like at one point, this may seem like an oversimplification, and people who've been doing podcasts a lot longer than me might take issue. But a podcast was a radio show delivered over RSS, right? Like it was an audio show.
Yes.
It was a talk show of some form, or
Yes.
a serial program of some form delivered as an MP3 file accessible to anyone openly.
Open standard.
Via RSS, right? RSS is about the most open standard that there is. No one owns it. Like it just is, right? And that was what a podcast was. And it has changed to, I don't know exactly how you, like a podcast now is just like, well, you kind of know it when you see it, but actually, do you know it when you see it? Because like there are podcasts that are basically late night talk shows that are just produced by someone at their ranch, right? Like it's just a very different thing. It's like hard to pin it, because like obviously what we do is similar in some ways, but different in a lot of ways than what Joe Rogan does, or, you know,
Diary of a CEO is a good example, which I literally just ran into this because someone was asking me for a shortcut to pull his latest episode. And Stephen Bartlett, who is the host of Diary of a CEO, has founded a new company, Flight Something, which is a video first podcast host. And in doing so, he has now moved Diary of a CEO, the show, to that host, and it is not an RSS feed. It breaks the standard.
Yeah.
And so I can't pull the episode via the RSS feed because it doesn't exist. It's not an actual RSS feed.
Right.
It is a video first platform with the intention of YouTube and Spotify being the main delivery platforms, and Apple Podcasts is like an afterthought.
Yeah.
So like that is the world that we are slowly moving into.
And I think what Apple is saying is that the thing people think of as a podcast is essentially dead, and we'll continue to support it, but you should really be doing this other thing. And the reason I say that, and the reason it matters, is I don't edit this show, but I do actually edit several podcasts and help produce several other podcasts. But in every case for the podcasts I've been involved with, and I think this includes Mac Power users, I think they are an audio show that also may have video versions or supplemental content. And obviously, like you and I are looking at each other, this video is going on YouTube. You show things sometimes as a display, but really we're still making an audio show that we also are doing enough so that when we publish it on YouTube that it's good, right? But I think that if you and I had to choose between the two, we'd probably be like, let's do the audio show. Like let's make, like if you couldn't edit both for some reason, we just couldn't, wasn't a, I don't know why, gun to your head, something like, we would be like, no, we're making an audio show. We also just love the fact that people can watch this on YouTube. And YouTube is very good for things like discovery, right? It is the advantage, and the reason so many podcasts end up on YouTube is because the podcast players have almost no algorithmic surfacing of content. They have a little, not really. Spotify maybe does the best job of that. I don't know. But that's not really the purpose of that. Whereas on YouTube, it is. YouTube just wants to keep showing you things that thinks you want to watch. Right. And so we do a good enough YouTube show so that we can continue to do that. But our audience is bigger, audio only, right?
Yes.
And so the question is like, what are we making now? And because you do have to make a decision, right? Like I host and produce a show for our church, which is about the simplest thing you can do. It's like a director's commentary on the weekend services.
Sure.
That's it. The person who preached the message shows up, talks about their message. We produced it in a video studio. It's 3 cameras, lights. I mean, it's a big deal, but like the point is we're making an audio show and we also post it on YouTube. This changes the dynamic because you are editing the video show in Riverside to be a good video show. But that is not the primary purpose of it, right? Like we are not taking these video files. You're not putting them in a Final Cut Pro. You're not doing all that kind of stuff. It's like Riverside will do most of the work for you so we can still publish it on YouTube. Right. But now what Apple is basically saying is this is for people who are making a video show. We'll also just make it so people can keep listening to the audio if they decide to go walk the dog.
I don't know if it's that. I mean, yes, Apple is admitting with these changes that video is like a big deal and they need to support it well. A lot of people on social media, because my post where I announced it and I posted it everywhere, went pretty big on like X and Threads, and half the audience was like, well, this is just YouTube. And the other half was like, yes, finally, we want to watch this in Apple Podcasts. One, because you wouldn't have to deal with YouTube ads, but ads do get in the mix, so stay tuned. You wouldn't have...
Actually, they are not in the mix. They are really the reason.
They're really the reason. But two, this is very much not the YouTube experience. There is no commenting. There is no engaging with your audience. Even Spotify has like Q&A where people can actually comment. And every once in a while when I'm uploading the video, I'm like, oh, shoot, we have like 20 comments from the last few months. And I'll try to go answer those. But there's no engagement. There's no commenting. It is very much not YouTube. It is a different experience. Also, like, again, the chapters, it is unclear how the chapters are going to work. We'll have to see later betas. But the other thing is, Apple is only supporting this through select hosting providers, and there are exactly 4 right now that support it. Omni Studio, Simplecast, Art19, which is owned by Amazon, and Acast. And if you look at these options, this is Apple's, like, the hosts we recommend page. There is one consistent thing across all 4 of these hosts. They vary in whether they support subscriptions and even transcripts and submitting your show, but the one thing they all support is dynamic ad insertion. And they support not only audio, but video dynamic ad insertion. And this is the deal. This is why Apple is only doing this with select hosts. Might be why Apple is doing it at all, is that it is not only a play to bring some video podcasts to the platform, but that Apple will now have data, namely watch data, to give to advertising networks about whether their ad was actually seen. So, very briefly, when someone chooses to sponsor this show, there is no guarantee of views and listens on that episode. A sponsor can only go off of our history. How many downloads does an episode typically get? How many views does it typically get? It sounds like the audience is this big. All right, we'll buy an ad on your next episode. So it is kind of like pre-buying an ad on the historical record faith.
Yeah. Well, and they have the one other piece of data, which is this is why every ad is like visit such and such / primary tech, because they know how many people went to that URL.
Actually click the link. And that's why when you hear a sponsor, and if you want to support the show that way, you know, it's a sponsor, you click the sponsor links. And there's tracking links, so they'll know how many times an episode was downloaded. So they'll see how many downloads this episode gets, and they can use that to inform their future sponsorship decisions. But even that data does not actually tell them if they listened to the whole ad. For instance, if you skipped forward while I was talking about transistor.fm/BeardFM, you didn't really hear that whole ad. But the download metric, doesn't tell a sponsor or even us as creators that data. Like, we just have, was this episode downloaded or not? Now, Apple Podcasts and Spotify has this data as well. Apple Podcasts actually has the retention metric, and so I can log into Podcast Connect, and if you use the Apple Podcast app to listen to this show, I can see dips in retention where people skipped forward, didn't listen to this portion, usually it's an ad or sponsorship, and then they start listening after. So Apple knows not only how many download numbers there are, but Apple knows if you listen to that specific 2-minute segment of an episode. They know that on the video, and now they can deliver that information to ad networks for the video. So this dynamic ad insertion, Keke Palmer's podcast, she can dynamically insert an ad, which means she records her show, the video, whatever, there was no ads in that file, gives that to the host, and then she records an ad for Squarespace on video. Outside of that, she puts a timestamp in the episode and says, put the ad here. And now she can swap out what ad gets placed on that timestamp forever. So if Squarespace says, give me your ad space for the next month, Keke Palmer can put that ad in that timestamp for the next month and then swap it out with a different sponsor the next month or whatever. That's the dynamic ad insertion. And it can even change based on your location. So if you listen to something like the Verge cast or something hosted on Megaphone, you might get a sponsorship at the beginning of that show that mentions your city, Tampa. And that means it can be dynamically inserted at the time that you're downloading the file. And the host or ad agency can insert an ad at the beginning of the show based on where you downloaded it or what device you have, and there can be some targeting to it. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say the other piece of it is, what did you say, Kiki Palmer?
Kiki Palmer's show, yeah.
Now the ad network can sell ads on her show she has nothing to do with. So like you can have the ad network can be like, we have 600 shows. You can buy an ad on all of them. I'm not saying that's exactly how it works, but like the creators have nothing to do with it. They just say, put ad here and pay me money for the ads that end up here. And they can now sell much more inventory to these advertisers, but you can only do that if it's like if the provider that's hosting it is able to say insert dynamic ad there, and it's pulling from over. So some of those targeted ads may not have been created by that podcast. They can be created by the ad network instead.
They can. So Apple can tell the ad agency, not only was this episode downloaded and watched, but this number of people watched your whole ad. And then an ad agency can tell the podcast creator, we're only paying, let's say there was 1,000 downloads, but Apple could say only 500 people watched the ad. Ads, typically on podcasts, deal on a CPM, a cost per 1,000 views. So if an ad agency told Kiki Palmer, oh yeah, we'll pay $1,000 for 1,000 views. But then Apple can deliver information, analytics to say, well, it got 1,000 downloads, but only 500 actually viewed the ad. Then the ad agency can say, well, we're only going to pay for the views that we actually got. So we're going to give you $500 because that's how many people actually watched our ad versus the full 1,000 for a full download. And so that is the turn here in, I think, why Apple is doing this and why they're doing it in this way. Because they're making dynamic video ad insertion a key part of this integration. Now, YouTube has announced that it is coming to YouTube as well. I was at CES. Renee Ritchie actually had a little talk about this, and they said dynamic ads are coming to YouTube videos writ large, including podcasts, on the YouTube platform as well. Spotify has said dynamic video ad insertion will be there too. But Apple is actually, for the first time, in actually a podcast feature like dynamic video ad insertion. And the final piece of this puzzle is in their newsroom article. You can see that Apple states, right here, it's in this paragraph, Apple does not charge hosting providers or creators to distribute podcasts on Apple Podcasts. So Apple is saying we're not going to charge the creator making the podcast or the host, like Acast or 819, whether MP3 or HLS video is used, but Apple will charge participating ad networks an impression-based fee for the delivery of dynamic ads and HLS video on Apple Podcasts starting later this year. It's the services revenue.
Well, and I think the important piece there is the implication is Apple will be the one who is soliciting the inventory from ad networks, right? They will charge the ad network. So there's another there's the content creator, there's Apple, there's the hosting, and then there are ad networks. And Apple is building a relationship with the ad networks, and that's the reason why the dynamic ad insertion matters, is because Apple has to be able to go to the ad network, pull the ad from them, and insert it into your podcast. This is what I meant by like dynamic ad insertion is not like Kiki Palmer records 4 different ads and just decides which one. It's no. She has nothing to do with the ads, right? Like it is just. So my question for you, Stephen, is I'm not sure who this is actually for. I have a theory, but my question is, why is Apple doing this? And I don't think it's purely a services thing.
No, but it is for the big shows.
Right. That's the important piece. This is only for the big shows.
It is for the big shows.
This is a hedge against all of the shows that are going to Spotify exclusives, going to Netflix. Right. Netflix. Remember, there's Netflix, right?
Yes.
That's what this is all about.
This is a way for Apple to say, hey, big shows, you can make money on our platform.
Right.
Like, this is not going to move the bottom line for Apple very much, maybe a small increase in services revenue. But it's for the big shows to have an option to make money on Apple's own platform. We, Primary Technology, we've never done a dynamically inserted ad. Every ad we do is what the old school way is called, which is baked in. Meaning when we put an ad in an episode, it's going to live there forever. So if you listen to episode 1 of this show, Rogue Amoeba, Audio Hijack was a sponsor, that ad is still in that episode.
Yes.
You can go back and you can go listen to it, and I would still stand by it. And that's one of the reasons why we're particular about sponsors we choose, because it's going to be there forever. The dynamic ad means next week, if every ad we ever did was a dynamically inserted ad, we could tell Squarespace, hey, you can be on our entire back catalog of episodes, all 118 episodes. You'll be the only sponsor. Pay us $1 million for the next month. And then we could change the ad.
We should totally do that, by the way. We should totally 100%. Do that. $1 million.
We will do it.
You sold me.
And Transistor does dynamically inserted audio ads, so I would do it in Transistor. But anyway, then you could do that. And so this is a play to the big shows where Netflix is trying to court big video podcasts, Spotify. And this is another reason why people were asking, hey, so if I host my video or podcast on Spotify, does that mean it'll be an Apple podcast? Heck no. Heck no. Why? Because Spotify lets you upload the video directly to them as a host for free because they have their own built-in ad network, the Spotify Partner Program, where you can monetize your video on Spotify's platform, and Spotify is the ad network.
Right.
That's why Megaphone, the host, is actually Spotify, and it's Spotify's ad network. So there is no way Spotify is going to give Apple any money and deliver that video via HLS to Apple Podcasts as a host. So
or the data. Even more importantly, they're not going to give them the data.
They're not going to give the data. So if you host on Spotify, which Spotify offers free hosting for a reason, it will never get to Apple Podcasts. I could just say that right now. Like, you will not give it. You'll have to move to a different host. But that is what is happening, and it comes back to what we will do. And if you have strong feelings about it, listener and viewer, I would be curious. We do have way more audio-only listeners than viewers. And if you listen in Overcast and Pocket Casts, none of this matters because it's only Apple Podcasts. But Apple Podcast is still like 50% of our listeners. And then Overcast is like 40-something%, and then smaller percentages after that. But if you have a strong feeling about this, I mean, we have like a month to decide. I've, again, talked to Justin at Transistor, and they're working with Apple to see if they can be one of the hosts that provides this, because they've already done HLS. And spoiler, if you're a super podcast nerd, I actually have been uploading the video version of this show to Cloudflare to get an HLS stream link, and it is in our RSS feed for a lot of episodes. Why? I don't know, because I wanted to try.
Because he's clairvoyant and he just can see the future.
I was just like, I want to try this for the heck of it. It was a new standard.
Because he likes to tinker.
Well, here's the thing. All right, last thing, and then we'll move on. HLS, as an alternate enclosure in RSS feeds, was something that many podcast hosts and like those in the podcast space in the background were trying to support and promote. Like, in an RSS feed, you can say, here's an audio enclosure, here's a video enclosure, and then podcast apps can choose which one to take. And there are podcast apps right now like Fountain. Fountain is a podcast app you can download right now on your iPhone. And if you look at our last episode, episode 117, you can watch the video in the Fountain app or the audio because I put an HLS link in there. And so Apple could have done that and said, if you have an alternate enclosure tag in your RSS feed, we'll support it. We'll just let listeners play the video. But that does not support the kind of features like dynamic ad insertion and the other things that Apple is trying to do here. So I'm not saying that Apple is bad for implementing it this way or they blew it or whatever. It's clear that they're trying to be in the video podcast space. They're trying to be a legitimate alternative to the big shows rather than they go to Netflix or exclusive to Spotify. Like Apple says, hey, you can do your video here and you can still make money and you can still do dynamic ads. So at one level, I appreciate Apple just expending any energy on Apple Podcasts because there were many years where it seemed like they didn't. But this feels a little, it's a mixed emotion.
Well, and I think the reason it feels weird to people is, again, podcasting, I know it's changed, but anyone who's been doing a podcast for more than 6 years, the appeal of podcasting is that it was open.
Yes.
And that is becoming less true, right? And
Correct.
it feels weird to people because Apple, we've called them the benevolent dictator of podcasting, right? They have been the champion of podcasting very quietly and in the background, right?
Correct.
They talk about podcasting less than anybody, but they do more. Like they literally host for free a directory of podcasts that essentially every player that isn't Spotify still uses. I mean, I know some of them have their own directories, but they pull them from Apple Podcasts, basically.
Correct.
If you put your show on Apple Podcasts, it can be listened to basically anywhere. Okay.
Correct.
And now Apple is making moves in a way that kind of feels weird. It's like, that's not open. Like
It's not.
Apple, like it doesn't feel weird if Netflix is doing this or YouTube is even doing this or Spotify. It definitely doesn't feel weird because this is like the way Spotify's always done it. Like it's fine. It's always been a streaming service. Like that's fine. But it just feels weird when it is Apple making these moves that feel like they are more about Apple's business model than the openness of podcasting. And we haven't talked about this. I don't care. Like, I don't have to edit the show, but I would say it doesn't feel like the experience that the small tangible benefit that this provides to people doesn't feel like it is worth overhauling everything, because listeners, you can email me, the other guy at podcast or at primarytech.fm. I'm happy for you to email me. I'd love to know what you think. Yes, it's nice if you can just go back and forth between the audio and the video. I get that. But we do make an audio version and we make a video version. They are both available. Yeah. You just can't literally swipe back and forth in the same app. And I feel like that's got to be actually a pretty small number of people who are that passionate about that, because I have literally never once thought I should watch a podcast as a video in Apple Podcasts. I just watch them all on YouTube. Like, that's just where I do that. For all those reasons, you can add comments. Some of you will leave comments and you'll find that Jason's in a mood and he just responds to them, right? Like, I can't do that in Apple Podcasts. I'm going to just keep doing it in YouTube. So,
yeah. So honestly, I would really love to hear from you, listeners and viewers. You can comment if you're on YouTube, or if you're listening, email us, theotherguy@primarytech.fm or podcast@primarytech.fm. Really, listen. I would like to hear from you, because this affects you directly, especially you as an audio-only listener. Because if we choose and have the ability to do the video in Apple Podcasts, it will change the audio experience. Yeah. It will mean likely no chapter artwork. Like, that will be a thing. And the audio might sound slightly different because it's going to it is the video version that I added differently. So would really love to hear from you. We're not going to make any more money by doing video because we don't do dynamic video ad insertion or any dynamic ad insertion. So there's literally no monetary benefit to us. It is really just, what does the audience want? And for a lot of shows our size, slightly larger and slightly smaller, it is basically going to be, would this help be discovered by more people? Will more people consume the show because of this? Or is this worth the effort? Because it will be more effort. So really, let us know. Podcast@primarytech.fm. And speaking of ads, we have 2 more sponsors to thank. So we're going to do that. Whoa. And then we have to do a lightning round because there's still a bunch of other news. So we'll be quick. But we want to thank our friends at Framer. Listen, if you're needing to make a website, I've used lots of platforms to make a website. I've mentioned some already. But Framer is an incredible newer tool for building websites, and it is amazing. It is truly a wild tool. And your website should help your business grow, not slow it down. So updates can feel harder than they should. If you feel like your small business, your company website is difficult to edit, difficult to update, it doesn't have to be that way. Framer is the shortcut you've been looking for, because Framer is a website builder that turns .coms from a formality into a tool for growth, helping thousands of businesses. Framer, it's a website builder, and it works like your team's favorite design tool. Real-time collaboration, a robust CMS with everything you need for great SEO, advanced analytics, even A/B testing, which I do A/B testing all the time on YouTube, and you can do it with your website. And changes to your Framer site go live to the web in seconds with one click. Publish without help from engineering, helping your team reduce dependencies. And it's also an enterprise solution. Premium hosting, enterprise-grade security, and 99.99% uptime SLAs that give the world's leading brands like Perplexity, Miro, and Mixpanel the confidence they need to build their websites in Framer. So learn how you can get more out of your .com from a Framer specialist or get started building for free today at framer.com/primary. And you get 30% off a Framer Pro annual plan. That's framer.com/primary for 30% off. And you'll see, oh, look at that right here, Framer and Primary Technology, code primary. Framer.com/primary. Rules and restrictions may apply. Our thanks to Framer for sponsoring this episode. And while you're making secure things, make secure logins and passwords. And that's what 1Password is there for. I use 1Password with my family. I've used 1Password in many different corporate situations, and 1Password is just the easiest, most secure, powerful way to do it. Supports pass keys that can sync across all your devices. And listen, teams of any size can be a target, whether a small team, big team, but the good news is even the smallest teams can foil cybercrime. 1Password provides simple security to help small teams manage the number one risk that bad actors exploit: weak passwords. If your team has every password memorized for your company, those aren't good passwords. Don't do that. 1Password provides centralized management to make sure your company's logins are secure. It's a simple turnkey solution that can be rolled out in hours, whether you have dedicated IT staff or not. And 1Password is designed to meet small teams where they are and built to grow with your company. I've used this in companies with hundreds of people, and I've used it just with a team of 10. And 1Password is still the best way to do it. And for those small teams, responsibility for security often defaults to one employee who's already juggling other business functions. Everybody's wearing multiple hats. Well, the most effective security solutions will need to be intuitive and user-friendly so that everyone at your company can use it. And 1Password's enterprise password management helps your company eliminate security headaches and improve security by identifying weak and compromised passwords. So here's what you do. Take the first step to better security by securing your team's credentials. Find out more at 1Password.com/primarytech and start securing every login. That's the number 1Password.com/primarytech and start securing every login. Our thanks to 1Password for sponsoring this episode. All right, we have to do a legitimate lightning round.
Okay. I'll just be quiet the whole time.
No.
Just keep reading. Just keep pretend like it's an ad read. You just read it.
No. The first thing, first of all, you're going to this thing. Google I/O.
Oh, that's true.
Google I/O was announced from May 19th through 20. We're going to see new things from Gemini and Android, and you'll be there in person.
I am planning on it. I've been to a number of Google I/Os. I'm not always sure why I go to Google I/O. No, actually, it's been fun.
You got to wear the glasses last time.
I got to try the glasses last time. They don't usually have a lot of hardware, but they usually will announce something related to whatever they're talking about. But really, I'm going because this is where they talk about a lot of their AI-related stuff. So, Gemini,
things like that. A side note, Pixel 9 series got AirDrop functionality through QuickShare. It was just Pixel 10 before. Now it's on the Pixel 9. Also, Gemini makes music now. Gemini announced Lyra 3, or Google announced Lyra 3, and you can make 30-second tracks just right in the Gemini app or Gemini on the web. It can do the lyrics, do the song, make music. AI with Gemini right now.
Oh, that rhymes. I like that. AI with Gemini.
Listen, Google, pay me $1 million and you can use that.
And we'll give you dynamic ads in every episode we've ever done.
For $1 million? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, we would do that.
Can't promise you when we'll make the next episode, but.
Exactly. Oh, also the Pixel 10a came out, and it's basically the same as the Pixel 9a, which is kind of hilarious. MKBHD had a video review. I'll put it in the show notes, but I think it's like the screen is 10% brighter. Literally the only difference.
I love that.
Great. Okay. Oh, and I don't know if he says it in the video, but hopefully the 10a has MagSafe, which is Pixel Snap. The 9a did not. So I don't know. I have to go back and see, but hopefully. OpenAI poached Meta's collab guru. So this is Charles Porch, and he's been at Meta for a long time, and he actually worked on collabs like with the Pope and Meta. And like, I think it was Beyonce's album release on Instagram and stuff. So this guy has worked with like big names and managed to connect Instagram and Meta to these big names. And so OpenAI has poached him from Instagram, likely to do big collabs between OpenAI and celebrities like the Pope. I don't know.
I mean, I think it was a different Pope, right?
It was a different Pope, yes, I think.
I mean, the current Pope is from Chicago, so he might be interested in some good old-fashioned collaborations.
Maybe.
So we might see the Pope at like a Bears game wearing Meta's Oakley glasses.
That would be hilarious. But also, just a side note, I feels like OpenAI probably is putting more effort into their like overall brand oeuvre, because Claude, I don't know, really feels like it's just consumed the AI world as like everyone's talking about it kind of thing. and less people are talking about ChatGPT now. It feels like in the tech bubble. Does it feel like that to you?
I don't know what the perfect analogy here is, but it does feel like OpenAI is Walmart and Anthropic or Claude is, I don't know, what's the bespoke retailer that like everyone is talking about all the time, but still not everyone is using. I mean, it's not like Louis Vuitton because it's not quite like, although I don't know. Sam Altman says that Anthropic is AI for rich people, so maybe it is.
It's the same. The pro plan is the same price.
I know.
They
just made the free plan better. Anthropic literally just made their free plan better. They just don't have the in-between plan.
I'm probably gonna post this on social media today, but I'll run it by you first. I had this like funny analogy where I was like, Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT. I feel like Gemini is the overeager personal assistant who has researched everything about you, but still doesn't really know you, but they're trying to like help you a lot.
Gemini?
I feel like Gemini's like
Gemini has personalized context now.
That's what I'm saying. It knows like a lot of information about you, like someone who's done a lot of research on you. But when you ask it something, it doesn't really know like you personally, like how you want to be. So anyway, let me finish the analogy. So I feel like that's Gemini.
Okay.
I feel like Claude is like not your best friend, but like a close friend, but who's also like really smart and who's the person you go to like ask technical questions or when you need help with something. Like that's who you go to, Claude.
So you're Claude. Okay, got it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And then ChatGPT is like your old best friend who may not be as good as like giving you current information or advice, but has the most history with you and somehow like responds closer to what you're wanting to hear maybe or what you're comfortable hearing. And like those are like your three friends. Does that analogy have any water?
I mean, ChatGPT is definitely the person who still calls you by your nickname you had in high school, and you keep begging them to stop, and they will not stop, and they just keep calling you by that name no matter how many times you punch them in the mouth.
What does it call you?
I'm just saying it's constantly
doing
these things that you're like, please never, ever, ever say that to me again.
Correct. Yes.
Every time I have it transcribe a podcast and ask it for a description, the last sentence always begins with "along the way." I'm like, friggin' no! Never say those words again to me. Just stop doing it. Okay, I understand you don't like them. Next time, along the way. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh my word.
Anyway,
wait, but is this an analogy you feel like it holds?
I mean, I think Gemini is probably the smartest of the three in general, in my experience.
More than Claude?
But the attitude of Claude is by far your cool but nerdy friend.
Well, for my use cases, me and Claude, we've been building a lot of shortcuts together.
It's the coding thing. I get it. But here again, most people don't give a flying whatever about coding.
Sure.
It's just the creator, influencer, coding community that cares, and they're the ones that happen to have like the most followers on all the platforms.
I will say, I will ask Gemini for something. I'll literally say, get me the article on this. And Gemini will like give me a summary of the article, talk about the article, and we'll say, here's a link. And it will not be a link to that article. It'll be a link to like a Google search for the title of that article. But I'm like, I'll literally tell Gemini, give me the actual link.
Hey, Gemini, you're Google. You understand what to do.
I'm right here. Just give me the link. And I feel like ChatGPT and even Claude will literally, I can get a link and it'll just load the article. So anyway. I don't know, that's how it feels to me. Okay, so a couple more AI things. OpenClaw founder, poached by OpenAI. Peter Steinberger, who created OpenClaw, he's like totally blown up overnight because of OpenClaw. He's now going to OpenAI.
Yeah, this was inevitable, right? Like literally, it was just where was he going to go?
I mean, Anthropic could have.
No, I'm saying where was he going to go?
Yeah,
like he was going to go somewhere.
Yeah,
the only question was where, and it is not surprising at all that OpenAI was willing to pay the most amount of money. They gave Johnny Ive $6 billion or whatever to make. We don't know what.
A pen.
A
pen with a microphone.
A thing that's been delayed for 2 years or whatever.
Exactly. So that's that. RAM, I feel like I need to talk about this, not at length, but RAM is like a problem, like the RAM shortage. It's really becoming an issue.
Well, no, AI is a problem.
Yes.
One of the symptoms of the problem is you can't get RAM anymore because all of the RAM is being used for graphics cards or whatever.
Right. But for, those of us, we have a heavily Apple slanted show. This will affect Apple products probably soon. Like maybe the iPhone 18 lineup this fall either gets more expensive or there's some kind of change there. Apple CEO Tim Cook literally told analysts during the last earnings call that Apple will, quote, look at a range of options to deal with this shortage problem. And further, in this Verge article, Intel CEO said there's not going to be any relief until 2028, mostly because there's an Idaho memory fab that's not going to open until mid next year, but you won't see yields until the year after. So this is going to be an issue probably for the next year or two, and will result in either higher prices, either less specs in phones, so like the flagship phones might have less RAM inherently, or things might be harder to get, like iPhones might actually sell out, and you might not get them on launch days. Something will happen because of this RAM shortage. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, there is someone whose job is to just plug numbers into a massive server farm, and all it is doing is trying to calculate three variables, which is how much can we raise a price without lowering demand and maintaining our margin. Like, it's just what is the best combination of those three things? Because if you don't do anything, if you raise zero prices, demand would roughly stay the same, but your margin would go way down, right? If you want to maintain your margin, you have to really increase the prices, which means your demand is going to grow. Like, people are not going to spend an extra $1,000 for the same amount of MacBook Pro, right? You just they're not going to do that, which means the demand would go down a lot. So we're going to see some combination of those things where the prices will probably go up somewhat, but Apple will probably be willing to eat more margin than, say, Dell.
Mostly because their unified memory and storage margins have been huge forever.
Yes, so they have a little bit of room. But the thing is, the reason that equation is important is somebody is doing the math. What will look worse to Wall Street? Lower margins or lower overall volume? And I promise you that probably skews more towards margins, right? Because Wall Street's like, well, if you can keep your margins, we understand that people bought less things this quarter. Right. That will change, but you didn't give up on your margin. So it's really going to be like, we can sacrifice 2 to 3 points of margin if that means that we stay within 5% of the same sales volume.
Right.
I just made all those numbers up, but I think it checks out. I think it checks out.
Sounded good. I mean, but that'll be the strategy. So we'll see come this fall, I think, with the iPhone 18, or even the devices that come out March 4th. We'll see.
Yeah.
So we touched on this, and you injected in the last episode, and I wish we had spent more time on it, because I think you were pointing out, like, the Ring commercial during the Super Bowl with the pet finder thing was dystopian and weird.
Super bad. It was cute, but it was super bad for what it was doing.
Correct. And I want to thank Chris Peck in the community for pointing this out. He commented on last episode's post. But Amazon had partnered with a company called Flock originally to help with this like pet finder feature, quote. And Flock, it was found that lots of agencies had access to the Flock camera network, which included 80,000 cameras across the U.S., including things like Customs and Border Protection, had access to it. So a bunch of people got onto Amazon for this Super Bowl ad because it was like, you're partnered with this company. They have 80,000 cameras. They give that camera as access to people. So Amazon broke the partnership with Flock. So Amazon is not partnering with Flock, but just their Ring Pet Finder feature, in an internal email, they made it clear that it's not just for finding pets. So in the internal email, and you could hear, the Vergecast talked about this, and I'll include the Verge article, but in the email, they basically said that this network of cameras, namely Ring, will allow them to zero out crime, which on the face of it sounds like not a bad thing, but...
Hold on. What do those words mean?
That's the problem.
What does it mean to zero? Is this like... what a Minority Report, like pre-crime? Ring cameras are getting pre-crime, Stephen.
That's the thing.
Because there's like no way a network of cameras are going to stop people from committing crimes. People commit crimes for all kinds of reasons, and there will always be motivations for people to commit crimes. It might make it so that like it's much easier to apprehend people who commit crimes, especially home invasions or whatever just happens. But like, what does that actually mean that you're in? And the reason I ask is it is super important to know what the motivation here is if your stated goal is to zero out crime.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a Minority Report kind of thing, which is super weird.
Yeah, they know that that's not like a good story, right? Like they literally take the guy's eyes out, right?
Well, he does that on his own accord.
I'm just like, my point is like that was the only solution.
Right. So, and like, if you've never seen Minority Report, you should watch it First of all, it's a good movie.
It's like a 25-year-old movie at this point. There's no spoiler. We don't have to give spoiler alerts anymore.
Please don't tell me it was a 25-year-old. It came out in 2002. Oh my god.
24 year. I was only off by a year.
I literally just became a skeleton as I realized that. Oh my goodness.
The fact that you are more surprised by when it actually came out than the fact that I was pretty sure I knew when it was coming out. Like, come on, Steven.
I should have done a Minority Report quote. Anyway, pre-crime. I guess that's what we're talking about. So and we don't have time to do this now, but I feel like maybe in an episode soon, I would love to like tease out our feelings about surveillance and cameras and all the things, because like doorbell cameras have just become ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And Ring has become synonymous with that ubiquity. Not Ubiquity, the networking company,
right.
Ubiquity ending with a Y. But it is, I don't know. I'm getting weird about it. And I'm kind of glad that I'm all in on HomeKit Secure Video, even though it only supports 1080p. I feel pretty good about it now. But anyway.
Yeah, the problem isn't whether you have a Ring doorbell camera. It's the fact that everyone else has one. The thing is, we all have that same perspective. So that means everyone has them. I don't have one, by the way. We do not have a Ring doorbell camera.
Oh. Do you have a doorbell camera?
No, we don't have a doorbell camera. Listen,
you just have no idea. You just hear a knock at the door and you're like,
no one knock. We live in a neighborhood. Don't knock on my door.
You have no
reason. You have no reason to come to my house. Leave. Don't
knock.
Don't
deliveries. People
they don't knock on your door. They just leave with the door. Then they leave.
No, my delivery people ring my doorbell and then leave.
Oh, they doorbell dash you.
So by the time the HomeKit Secure Video actually pops up, there's nobody there. So I hear the doorbell ring. I look at the video. I wait 5 seconds for it to load, and I say, "Oh, there's no one there."
No, we just put a sign in our front door. It's like slowly set it down and back up. We also have a very big dog. She is the friendliest dog. She is the perfect dog. I'm going to tell you right now.
Oh.
The goal of getting a dog is get a 75-pound Labradoodle that is just amazing with kids, but barks like the world is coming to an end.
So it's a deterrent.
We have had, there was a situation recently where this happens like every couple of years. You'll see on the news like, oh, there's a person who the police are looking for and they don't know where they are, and we're like, just keep the dog out, because no one's coming in this house with a 75-pound dog that barks really loud. Like it doesn't matter that she would, if you did break into our house, she would just lick your face. Like, you're not coming in if you hear that bark.
Oh, that's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, last part of the lightning round.
We're just trying to zero out crime one dog at a time.
One dog at a time. I would trust a network of dogs before a network of cameras.
100%.
I'll tell you that. This Warner Brothers Discovery, Netflix, and Paramount deal continues. The saga continues. March 20th, Warner Brothers has set a date where shareholders will vote on whether Warner Brothers Discovery will be acquired by Netflix or Paramount. They've given Paramount one more week to give them their best offer to make them a deal they can't refuse. Paramount is going so far as to covering the termination cost of Warner Brothers going back on the Netflix deal. Paramount really wants Warner Brothers, but Warner Brothers really wants to go to Netflix. And this is like the most hilarious love triangle that I love hearing Neeli and David talk about every week, but I just wanted to mention it too.
Yeah. Well, the reason that you like hearing them talk about it is it's as if no one has ever looked at the outcome of any of Warner Brothers' previous mergers. It's like, why is everyone fighting so hard to have this thing that will kill you? Like, it's like people are like, why? It's both Netflix and Paramount are just, they're just trying to get a terminal disease.
I think it would kill Paramount before it killed Netflix, though.
Oh, yeah. It's not going to kill Netflix. It might ruin their brand or something. I don't know. But it would definitely kill Paramount. So maybe we should let them have it.
It'll just... I think so. I mean, for Netflix, it's just going to mean a bunch of movies in their library for all the IP that's Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not... I think that it would be problematic for Netflix in some ways because Warner Brothers is a massive studio, right? And Netflix makes original content, but Netflix does not run a massive movie studio that licenses. Like, Warner Brothers makes Ted Lasso.
Right.
I don't think Netflix is super used to making shows to sell to Apple, right? Like, there's a lot of complications that will be there for Netflix as well. But I think Netflix is probably better suited to do it. And mainly, I mean, they make money.
Right. They have more money to burn.
They are not. But the reason everyone is like, Neeli, the thing he keeps talking about is the reason this is so interesting that Paramount is so gung-ho about this is the financing for this deal is coming from Larry Ellison, who is the father of David Ellison, the CEO of Paramount. And Larry Ellison is getting all of this money, cashing out the stock of Oracle,
which is the AI
which
bubble.
is making a huge bet on OpenAI. It's like, so what he's basically saying is I would rather sell off my AI to buy Warner Brothers. What? When you think about it that way, you're like, yeah, it's definitely going to kill somebody.
That. All right, personal tech. Did you try a travel router?
Oh my gosh, Steven. Okay, I'm not going to say what travel router because I'm going to tell you it's garbage.
Oh, okay.
And I don't understand. The question I want to ask you is, and I realize that this is slightly a broader question. Okay, the company reached out. Would you like to test this travel router? I'm like, yeah. Especially because I'm going to go to Texas, which we'll talk about in the bonus episode.
Yeah.
So I'll take this thing and I'll use it. And I tested it at home where we get pretty good signal. And the key for this particular type of travel router is it'll just connect to any network. It's not like it's not like a MiFi hotspot from Verizon or something.
Right.
This thing will connect to any network.
Oh, so this was a cellular hotspot router.
Yeah. As opposed to what?
Well, the travel router from Ubiquiti.
Oh, no, this is not like you just plug it into the Wi-Fi at the hotel. This is okay. So I tested it at home. And I think I sent you a message maybe. I don't know. It was like 19 down, 2 up. I'm like,
okay,
that sucks. Like my kid can run faster than that, right? Like I don't understand why would anybody pay. And the unlimited plan for this thing is $120 a month. Okay,
it'd be cheaper to get just a phone line with a hotspot.
Hold on, and I was like, well, I don't know how I would do this. I would just tether to my phone. Like I have 2 phones I can tether from. So
no matter what, a Verizon. What are those things called? The Verizon. Like it's just a hotspot.
The MiFi thing, yeah, that's and it would be faster. Now those things are limited to some extent because many of them don't have 5G yet. But whatever. Okay, it's like, okay, fine. I'm gonna take it anyway. It's very small. It's probably not much larger than this case for my in-ear monitor. So it was not very big. It was relatively easy to use. Although you can't change the name of the SSID or the password, which is kind of annoying. Let's be honest. That's kind of annoying. Like, let me just make this Jason Slow router and not have to call it whatever it was called. So I take it on the trip. And where we were, my Verizon phone cellular was getting like 500 down, 300 up on 5G. Pretty good, right? Okay. And my Google Fi phone was getting like 200 and 200. Like, fine. I don't need anything faster. Like, there's nothing I'm doing I need faster than that. I don't really know how much the data cap is on the Verizon one. I think that Google Fi is like 60 gigs or something. So whatever. You could conceivably exceed that. The hotspot router was getting 6 and 0.2.
Well,
what is it connecting to, Steven? Why would anyone pay? Who is it? I have so many questions. I don't understand but there has to be a market for these, and am I just jaded by the fact that my phone plans have tethering included? And I hear people like on other podcasts talk about how terrible tethering is. I'm like, I don't care how many times I have to reconnect to my phone. I'm not 6 and 0.2 is not a viable option for anything.
No.
Explain this to me, Steven.
I tether to my phone all the time. I don't think it's a big deal. I do like having built-in cellular on my iPad because it's nice. But before I had that, I would just hotspot to my phone and it was fine. It is nice to have a different carrier as like a hotspot option. So like my iPad has Verizon. And there are many times when the Verizon service is better than the AT&T when it comes to data speed. And so it's nice to have like that option, but I would never pay more than that. Side note, Verizon apparently does have 5G like things. See like that mute button? I just sneezed.
I thought one of us just had a stroke. I don't know. Like out of my corner of my eye, all I see is Steven lunging across the room. And the sound all went dead.
That's right.
And I'm like, I don't know what just happened.
Mute button for the win.
Woo!
Apparently, you can get a 5G thing from Inseego or TCL for Verizon to get, a hotspot. $350 for these things. I'll tell you that. I don't know. I would just hotspot. I didn't think that was what you got.
Oh no, yeah, that's what we got. It's
I wouldn't
real bad. That's the only reason I'm not going to say. I did email the people, and I was like,
"This is garbage."
Okay, I want to understand why did you send this to me. Because I don't think you actually want me to write about it because it's trash. So there you go.
Well, yeah, don't get that. What I got was the Ubiquiti travel router, which is already out of stock again. It is in stock for like minutes at a time, and thankfully Casey List kept texting me somehow whenever he saw it was in stock, and I finally was able to buy one. But this is for in your hotel room, connected to the Ethernet port by the desk, and now you can have your personal Wi-Fi all the time. And so you don't have to deal with the captive network screen and log into the Wi-Fi every time you're in your hotel room. But also it can be literally like a VPN to your home network. So you can access your like network attached storage or whatever and do it all there. And then you also will probably get faster speeds than paying the extra money every day for the hotel's high-speed Wi-Fi, which is usually not even that fast. This is all going to get you like a better experience than that. So that's why I got it. I've yet to try it, but...
You don't think that that's like... I don't know. The hotel's going to throw you out or something?
What's going to throw me out?
The hotel.
No.
That $20 a day is a big deal to them.
They don't care. They don't care what's plugged into that either. No one's checking to see what you're doing.
I cannot wait for the
I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it soon, though. Actually, I think I have a weekend trip coming up, so I'm going to try it. But I don't know. I had a better Wi-Fi experience. After I had to hotspot to my iPad to upload video at CES, I was like, I need to get this. I want to try this to do that. All right, we're going to go record a bonus episode. We have a couple things there. Jason has a saga about Texas we're going to talk about.
Listen, I promise you should sign up just so I can tell you this story.
I'm so excited.
And then you can cancel. It's fine.
No, cancel. You just sign up for a year. Save some money. Sign up for a year. I think you'll enjoy it, but you get the full unedited, you get the unedited, which is actually edited, but it just includes a pre-show. You get the unedited feed, which still has chapters. You get an ad-free version of the show. You get bonus episodes. You get Primary Tech Daily. You get all the things when you support the show at join.primarytech.fm. You can also support us directly on Apple Podcasts, and really do reach out, podcast@primarytech.fm. Let us know, what do you feel about video on Apple Podcasts? Do you care? Do you really hope we adopt it? Do you absolutely not want us to? We really want to hear all the things. And, of course, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And also reach out. Let us know if you see that EV charging in Apple Maps. I actually remembered everything we asked people to tell us this week. I don't know how.
Did you take notes? Because that's what I started doing. I had to take notes.
I took no notes. It just all came back to me. It just came flooding back. So, anyway, let us know. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.